everyone. Hope you're well. Sam here from Portals, and today I'm delighted to be joined by two of the masterminds from Cats and Cats and Cats, Adam and Ben. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, really good,
Hello.
thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for playing the festival. We absolutely cannot wait to see what you have in store for us because we know it's going to be something special. So, first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about Cats and, the kind of music you play and how it all got started?
Yeah, so a lot of the band grew up around the Staines and Egham area, which if you don't know about the area, where have you been? It's a place where not much happens, but linoleum was actually invented in Staines, so it's got a history of innovation. Um, and yeah, we were actually looking back at some old reviews recently, and they were kind of saying like, how did this kind of music come from a place where it's not got a lot going on. It was a fairly, I don't know, it's a satellite town of London. There's not a lot going on there, and so yeah, it's a bit strange that this happened. But yeah, a kind of scene grew up around there, and we had so many other bands that were weirdly doing very similar things. And some of them we were good friends with, like the Siegfried Sassoon, and Tube Lord were down the road in Kingston. But then others like Colour, or who a lot of the members are now in Tangled Hair. They were from around the same area as well, so same ballpark in terms of music. But we didn't really know they were there for quite a long time. And then it wasn't until later on we were like, this music's great, and then we found out they were also just down the road. So we were really lucky in a way, that all that was happening, and we could all kind of bounce off each other and influence each other. In terms of what we sound like, or we got we we've got a quite a range over our catalogue, of different styles. But I think Feck in Bahamas recently summed us up as cinematic emo, which we've kind of latched onto, and we really like that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, with all those bands around, the kind of emo, indie tinged math rock, math pop kind of style. I guess there's a kind of a lot of influences shared there between those bands, and like, Colour and Tube Lord are that niche royalty really in the kind of British scene. So did you ever play any gigs with those guys back in the days?
Uh, well, 20 years ago now, no more maybe. Ben used to promote shows at a small local jazz club called the High Society, where yeah, the early iterations of those bands, guys that went on to be in Meet Me in St. Louis, for example, used to come and play. And Ben used to get, I think I was only 15 or 16, 'cause Ben's a couple of years older than me. So he used to smuggle me in to go and play or watch early iterations of those bands from the area. So yeah, it was really fortuitous that there was this strange niche growing around this small uh yeah jazz bar at the end of Staines High Street.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet?
Yeah, we both went to the same secondary school, so and we all started getting into various types of rock music at the time. And so yeah, we would have been getting out of Staines as much as possible to go up to London to see shows. I remember a few, really good nights. I think we saw Green Day at the do you remember when Tower Records
Oh yeah.
used to have shows uh in there before they built the stage, I think, because they
Right.
did later on, they had a stage, but before that it was just like the bands were just playing on
On
the
the floor.
floor. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, went up and yeah, saw that.
Um, so how did you pick up the other members of the band?
So our bassist and another guitarist who was also in the band later on, that they were friends from back home as well, back in Staines Egham area. And yeah, so that's it's really nice having people who you have known since you're a kid because you just all of your references are the same, and it's really easy to just be like, well, this bit I want to sound a bit more like, this extremely niche band from, Addlestone. And they'll be like, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, right.
Nice.
um, so that's always really, really handy. But then when me and our bassist went to uni, we both went to the same uni in Hertfordshire. That's where we met Doug, the drummer. And yeah, for the first year there, we were actually a band called Clone of Metal, with the guitarist from back home. But then when he went off to uni, we became a three piece, and we thought it's time to kind of write a line under Clone of Mel, and then start something new. And yeah, Cats and Cats and Cats began as a three piece. So our first EP is just the three of us working on that. But then the following year, Adam uh, joined us because he came to University of Hertfordshire as well. And then Eve we met shortly after that, and yeah, we were kind of the three piece was nice, but it's a bit. I always found it a bit hard live. I know that there are bands that do it really well, but I've never got on with it. I've always thought there's a layer missing. So yeah, it kind of filled out the sound. We had Adam doing the second guitar, and then Eve joined a violin. We were and then we also met John Dunstan. We call him Dunce. Um, so he joined as well on trumpet around the same time. So yeah, just really filled it out, and that was what led to what happened on Sweet Drunk Everyone, which is what we're performing at Portals. So yeah, it's been a long time since then. Hard to
Excellent.
remember all the details, but yeah.
Great.
We've recently just dug out a lot of photos from the recording sessions, which we can send you some of if you want. If you
Oh,
want to see them,
amazing.
yeah, they're good memories for us. Ben, you found them on an old hard drive, I think. I thought they were lost, but there's some gold in there definitely. Because
Yeah,
we were
changes of styles. Anyone, look extravagantly different to now?
I seem to be wearing sunglasses in every photo of us recording, which I've got no memory of that at all.
Amazing.
Lee's our drummer, our current drummer. He's he's mixing and mastering legend. He's a multi-skilled man, definitely. He's very modest, but he's actually very talented. So he mixed and mastered all the original recordings. He's also a drummer, so he's now joined the band as our drummer, because our previous drummer, or original drummer, I should say, is lives in Australia,
Wow.
which is difficult
Yeah.
logistically. But so Lee knew the songs already, had mixed, mastered them. He's now remastered them, which I know we're gonna talk about in a moment. So he's always been really integral to the band. And the reason I'm mentioning him is because he used to have long hair, and we'd kind of forgotten that. And all the photos are brilliant because he looks so different
Excellent.
now. So,
Oh, amazing. Well, as you mentioned the album, let's move on to that. So when you first originally wrote the songs for the album, who were kind of the biggest influences you were drawing from at the time? Was there anyone you were trying to like emulate? I know you were saying before, Ben, that you kind of all had relatively similar, if not the same tastes or the same like bands that inspired you when you first got together. So yeah, what kind of influences did you take to go on and make that record?
But I think the a really big one when we were starting the band was youth movie soundtrack strategies from
I
Oxford.
I absolutely adore youth movies. So I'm from
Yeah.
Oxford, and they were one of the first bands that got me into kind of experimental music. So sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I saw them supporting Cursive, I think, at the garage, and yeah, just blew me away. And also, I think at the time I wanted to listen to stuff that was technical but wasn't metal, something that still had like choruses and hooks and things. And yeah, they kind of it all just clicked, and I was like, right, that's how you can do it. Um, so that's why our songs got horrendously long. Um, but then in style, obviously, we were taking a lot of influence as well from a lot of post rock that we were listening to at the time. Things like Explosions in the Sky, Godspeed You Black Emperor, that kind of thing.
I remember you making me a mix CD of stuff when we were kind of starting to write this record, and I look at that. I can still remember most of the tracks that were on it, and yeah, Explosions were on it, Moom were on it, Mew. Um, I'm sure your youth movies were on it as well, and you can, I think you can hear all those bits and pieces of influence in the record. I think um, the explosions in the sky bit is the influence of explosions in the sky was it was like an intense period where we listened to a lot of The Earth Is Not a Cold Dead Place, and you can definitely hear it in some of the record. But then I like that, as you said, we wanted to do technical stuff that wasn't metal, and I would also say we wanted to do technical stuff that was not just technical for the sake of it, but always took you somewhere within the song, and it's not just how do we stitch these two random sections together. There was a lot of thought that went into yeah, having complexity, but also, as you said, kind of catchiness and hooks as well. I remember spending hours and hours in either of our bedrooms at university, just bouncing ideas off of each other, and then going to the rest of the band, spending hours and hours on this one riff, and them saying, "Well, how many times do we do that?" And then you'd say, "Oh, just once," and then it changes again. So it took a long time to write it.
Well, that kind of leads on nicely to I was going to ask, how do you, or how did you, maybe it's changed, but how did you come up with the songs? What's your songwriting style? Because a lot of bands, they have a kind of a lead ideas person and they bring that to the band and the band works around that. Some bands, one person comes in with almost a fully formed idea and everyone just kind of tweaks parts to it. Or some bands only write organically in a room together, bouncing off each other. How did your songs kind of come about?
I think it's a bit of all of those really. Maybe less of the latter, just because I feel like jamming stuff, like full band jamming stuff, is not very conducive to math rock because it's by its nature it's unpredictable. Yeah, it's hard to do unpredictable things um, altogether. Uh, but the others definitely like sometimes Ab will come up with a riff, then bring it to me, and then we'd sit in a room for hours messing about with it and seeing where it went. Um, Other times I'd have a full song written that I'd bring in and be like, here's a song. Um, so and sometimes something in between where it's like some bits have been written by one person and then it's like, oh, that goes well with something else I wrote last week.
Yeah, nice.
I think the fact that everyone in the band was studying music at uni meant that everyone had some ability to, get involved with arrangements and things anyway. So principally, Ben would come with most of the ideas. I would come with some as well, and then everyone else would have some input, definitely. And even and Lee, who we mentioned, who did the recordings, he would also have an input in, giving his advice on, oh, I think this bit sounds better there, and help move things around. That's why we're talking about him a lot because he's always been part of the band really from that point of view, and he helped with the arrangements from that perspective.
So did he record and mix the album the first time? And you said that he was the one who has done the remasters of it. Is that right?
Yeah, Lee. So Lee, who, as we said, is drumming in the band at the minute. He recorded and mastered the originals. He then, over the years, he's played in folk bands. He's been a breakbeat DJ. He's does all sorts of film and TV music as well. So he's really really versatile. Does a lot of mastering as well. And when we started to talk about reforming, um, he actually, I think, was the person who said, I've always wanted to go back and tweak those things that maybe we didn't have enough time or resource to do at the original time. And he's still got all the stems of all the recordings of every instrument. So he went back and he's remastered not just Sweet Drunk Everyone, but most of the early kind of back catalogue. And the difference is amazing. He's really brought so much more energy. It sounds way more like how it was recorded, which is mainly live in the room. We didn't ever do things to a click. We always recorded as much as we could in the room, and I think he's recaptured that in the remaster, definitely.
Ah, incredible. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Um, what kind of brought the band back together? Was there a kind of initiating someone being like, "Oh, I really want to do this," or had someone else mentioned it to you, or did it just kind of come organically?
I think I'd be telling the truth to say that I don't think all of us have been in a room together for a decade, and it wasn't for any malicious reason. It was just people had moved literally all across the world. So we hadn't ever it hadn't ever come up in conversation just because we weren't ever together. We'd Ben and I would see each other at like friends' weddings now and again, and Ben lived in Japan for a long time as well. So we literally didn't see each other for years. Um, and honestly, it came about because I bumped into James from Arctangent, and we had just a one of those conversations that was like, "Oh, I remember Cats played 2000 Trees, and wouldn't it be great if if you did Arctangent because it's our 10-year anniversary?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that would be really cool. I'd have to go and speak to the other guys." And I walked away not knowing whether that was a serious conversation or not. I had no idea whether it was something that he just said off the cuff or not. So I was then sort of in the middle because I had to go and first speak to Ben and then speak to the others to try and see who was available. Um, and also go back to James and say, did you actually mean it? Because now I'm kind of trying to organize it. We had to get the blessing of the guys that live in Japan and Australia that we could carry on without them. But from your point of view, I mean, you were up for it.
Yeah, I moved to Japan like a couple of days after Cat's last gig, I think. So it was kind of a very abrupt ending there. And yeah, stayed there for like 7 years. But and at first I was kind of like, yeah, drawing a line under that and not going back to that kind of not in a kind of, oh, that was horrible. I absolutely loved it. But like I was like, right, ready to go on to the next stage in life, that kind of thing. And then, from afar watching, some of our close friends in their bands doing really, really well, getting to play Arctangent and like these incredible lineups. I was, a little bit jealous. And so, there was a bit of me that was like, yeah, that would be good, but I still kind of just didn't really think it would happen. And then kind of out of the blue, I just got in contact and I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, no brainer for me.
Bands that would potentially headline portals like Maybe She Will, for example,
Yeah.
played their first shows with us and vice versa. We go right back to like the first iteration of Maybe She Will, and John and Robin really supported us and vice versa, and toured together and did a lot of things together in the past. And to this day, John is kind of our kind of hidden member in the background who does a million things for us. Puts on our shows, puts out our records, and a million other things. Answers WhatsApps to me all day long, every day. um, so yeah, I think we saw a resurgence in the the popularity of some of the bands that we were touring with way back when, and that kind of made us feel like we wanted to give it another go. We looked back at our old gig histories and we did something like 250 shows, and we were doing 40, 50 shows a year. We were always touring all the time, and we kind of set the ground rules for this time round that we weren't going to do that again. We didn't want to, just spend. We can't like couch surf now that we're around 40.
Yeah.
So we've thought we'll be a little bit selective about what we do. If we get some offers, that would be really cool. We'll dip our toe out there again and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us perfectly on to your performance at Portals this year, which I'm looking forward to an incredible amount. How
Sam,
did
it's too much pressure. Sam, we're stressed and nervous enough as it is about
Oh,
it.
it will be amazing. Don't worry. It will be absolutely fantastic. How did the kind of the thought process come about, the idea to put together an ensemble to play the album in full? did anyone come up with that idea themselves, or was it like a, oh, hey, we could do this, and then it kind of grew legs?
Yeah, it just seemed like kind of the obvious thing to do because we remastered it. We put it out on vinyl, which we were really happy to do because that was another thing that we didn't get to do first time around, for various reasons. So when we got the offer from Portals and we found out we were going to be playing on the theatre stage, it just the two went together so well in our heads. It might have been Adam that suggested it. He's been coming up with a lot of good ideas. So that we were all just like, oh yeah, yeah, obviously we'll do that.
The theatre stage at Earth, like Ben and I have both been there to other shows. I mean, I saw Lisa O'Neill, the folk singer, play there, and I was late. I literally walked in a few minutes before she started, and I sat right on the front row. It was like the only pew that was left. So I was really like I was on my own, and I just went and sat right at the front. And she was just on her own, whereas we're going to have like 20 odd people. But it's just it's an honor, honestly. It's just the best venue to do anything of this kind of scale on. It's
Yeah.
yeah, a
The
privilege.
sound in there is phenomenal. Like, yeah, we had Nordic Giants, we've had Wang Wen, yeah, we've had Human Pyramids. It's an astonishing room, and yeah, they're gonna make you sound great.
We're really looking forward to it. I'm like 50% completely terrified and 50% just I can't wait to get up there.
Cool.
Yeah, and do the album is going to be so much fun.
Amazing.
We were talking. We don't think we've ever done it in full. Even when we launched it and we did a tour, we weren't playing the whole thing. Normally cassette times were quite limited, so to have the opportunity to do the whole thing in full for the first time with all the other accoutrements is just amazing. Yeah, we're throwing the kitchen sink at it because that on the record there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
But
surprised there's
yeah,
not a kitchen sink on the record.
well, we've been toying with the ideas of having like a mini Stonehenge, like from Spinal Tap, which I know Ben's still trying to make out of paper mache or something, I think.
Well, it's taken up all our time relearning these songs. They weren't the easiest to learn in the first place. So it's been a bit tricky remembering where all the fingers go and stuff.
It, it's also been
But
embarrassing looking at Spotify Wrapped because when your own band is the band you've spent most of the year listening to, and people see that, it's not a good look. But we've had to really, really, go deep to try and remember how to play the songs. I,
yeah,
I think
if your
I'm our
friends
number one fan on Spotify now.
if your friends in bands aren't sharing their Spotify Wrapped, that's the reason. They they
Yeah.
might say it's political, but yeah. So we haven't really kind of had a chance to really think about anything new yet, besides the gigs we've got upcoming. I do play in another band though, who have very kindly been asked to also play at Portals. So if you're there and you're going for the whole weekend, which you should be, then yeah, come and check us out on the Sunday. We're Fly Fly Triceratops. Um, the bassist from Fly Triceratops as well, Liam, has very kindly stood in for Cats too and learnt our songs, learnt our songs quicker than we relearnt them, I think. Um,
That's impressive because, I mean, as you were saying before, the songs are quite complicated and long. So, yeah, yeah, huge props for him for managing to do that.
I think Ben, you
yeah,
described Liam as the best musician you've ever been in a band with, and I sort of, I didn't know how to take that, but and then I started playing with him at practice, and he's very good.
Excellent.
yeah, it's very different writing with Fly Fly Triceratops because like you were saying earlier, Adam, we'd spend a long time on a riff, and half of it would just be like, what's the timing here? Where's the one? What's going on? But yeah, would like literally with Liam, I'm like, here's something that took me, days and days to get right, and then he's like, oh yeah, yeah, I've got it. Yeah,
Nice.
We whizzed
Excellent.
through most of OK Computer, just me and him just jamming out on Sunday, which was fun. Then we're going to do the Ben league next
He's
week.
never heard AK Computer, by the way.
No.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Just pick it up as you do.
Yeah.
Cool, fantastic. Wow, all of that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. So you can check out Cats and Cats and Cats performing on Saturday at Portals Festival and Fly Fly Triceratops on Sunday. And yeah, once again, thank you so much, Adam and Ben, for joining me. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much, Sam. See you
Thank you.
soon.
Bye.